What is up, guys? It's your boy Chilled Gaming. Today we're gonna race through Pokemon Red. Seeing as I played Yellow a lot growing up and watched J-Rose regularly, and my wife has played no more than 20 minutes of the game, she will be playing the game normally, and I will be doing a variation of a Nuzlocke. That means, if my Pokemon faints, it's gone for good, and I can only catch the first Pokemon on each route. We agreed, however, that if the Pokemon die outside of battle due to poison, I may still use it. Throughout the playthrough, I will be playing as Zex.
And I will be playing as Fried Dill. We've named our rivals after each other. Upon exiting my house, I head straight for the lab, not realizing that Professor Oak isn't there yet, so I head out of town when he comes and decides to drag me back to the lab. I choose to take Bulbasaur as my starter and name it Thorns.
Having not wasted time going to the lab first, I already had the chosen one, Kevin, the Bulbasaur. My first rival fight started by lowering his attack, but he is faster and got a scratch off. After lowering his attack a few times, I decide to spam tackle, while he decides to lower my attack. I proceed to not care, and land 2 critical hits. He responds with a crit of his own, and then does 2 damage for every 1 damage that I do, resulting in a loss.
Meanwhile, for my rival fight, I get lucky. He misses his first growl, hits me with a second, and then misses with a third. I then use tackle, while he continues to growl. I get a crit, and he scratches back, but it's too late. A few tackles later, and Charmander faints.
Now that I have Pokeballs, the Nuzlocke officially begins. I head to Route 1, where I pick up a Rattata and name him George. On Route 2, I manage to run into a Pidgey and call him Burb. I went to Route 22 after that, in hopes of catching a Nidoran, but got incredibly unlucky and am stuck with a Spearow that I named Ducks. I have big plans for Ducks, but I was hoping to get one a little bit later in the run. I head to Viridian Forest and catch a Weedle that I name Milwaukee.
Not really sure what to do, I head down to what I now know as Route 22. My first encounter is a Nidoran, which I catch and christen Hanklin, like Franklin, but different. I then wander around confused for a while, switching between Viridian Forest and what I guess is Route 2. Not sure whether I should continue on through the forest or if there is more I should do before I move on. I caught a Pidgey, and then I caught a Weedle. I now work on grinding up my Pokemon, catching a Rattata called Splinter along the way.
After doing some grinding myself, I went to take on Brock's gym. I got Kevin to level 13 where he learned Vine Whip, and Milwaukee evolved to Kakuna as I beat the gym trainer. Vine Whip allowed me to one-shot Brock's Pokemon, so I was able to switch train Milwaukee during the fight. I skipped as many trainers as I could on Route 3, so I could come back and level up the Magikarp that I named Plop.
I was grinding Rattata when I looked over and saw Zex beating Brock. I proceed to grind for another 20 minutes before heading over to face Brock myself. I decide to switch train Hanklin while facing Brock. At this point, I'm still not sure who will remain useful and who will be sacrificed to Bill's PC. After I defeat Brock, I wander around again for a while. If you were to see my entire run, it would be a lot of running back and forth, trying to decide what to do next. However, at this point, I decide to head down the path to the right.
When I was grinding, Burb died a horrific death because he was the most expendable. I then went to Mount Moon to get my encounter. I was hoping for a Geodude, but I got stuck with a Zubat. I then went to the grass for a few minutes to try and get my last encounter, a Jigglypuff. After catching Jigglypuff, I entered Mount Moon again, to level up Plop, and I entered an encounter with a Team Rocket Grunt, and he got a good hit off on my Jigglypuff, but she managed to survive on 3 HP. On my way back to the Pokemon Center, I had a random encounter with a Zubat, but the Jigglypuff wasn't fast enough and couldn't get away. I left Mount Moon and laid her to rest with Burb.
We had some difficulty with my game running at 1000% speed, so we had to adjust the settings in our emulators to make it so we were running at the same speed. That's why the game speed is now shown in the bottom left corner. I got a little lost in the cave, but eventually I made it through Mount Moon, leveling up Hanklin as I went. I discovered Bulbapedia and found out what Moonstones would do, so I evolved Hanklin into Nidoking. I decided to tackle Misty's gym, taking her on with Thorns. Somehow, I lost this footage, however, so unfortunately, you won't be able to see Thorns in all his glory. After defeating Misty, I spent 5 minutes trying to teach Cut to a Pokémon before realizing she gave me Bubble Beam, not Cut. Guess I should read the text more carefully next time. I took on rival number 2, beating him pretty easily, and made my way across Nugget Bridge.
While grinding, Milwaukee learned Fury Attack, George learned Hyper Fang, and I learned how much Fried Dough was using Bulbapedia. I began to panic seeing as Fried Dough had beat Misty and the rival, and was nearing Bill. I rushed into my fight with Misty's gym trainers and beat both of them, then went back to grinding against wild Pokemon. I took on my rival, and George nearly died to a critical gust, but I was able to heal him up while Plop was in the fight of the Sentry against the Abra that only knows Teleport. I then went back to take on Misty herself, and beat her surprisingly easily. I made it across Nugget Bridge and started rushing to catch up with Fried Dough, who had no idea where the SS Anne was. It was only a matter of time before she checked Bulbapedia. Against Misty, I continued to switch train Plop, because Gyarados is really useful. Vine Whip made quick work of Staryu, and although Starmie got some good hits in, I had remembered to buy potions, so I was in no real danger. Growing up, I never used items in battle. Not sure if it was because I didn't know how, or because I didn't know how useful they were, but I never did.
I find my way to the SS Anne, and am completely blindsided by a rival fight. I use Thorns to take down his Pidgeotto, and then sub him out. My rival is not prepared for a thrashing Nidoking, and my battle with Kadabra is over before I realized we had started. I didn't understand how Thrash worked. Upon looking up what Pokemon could learn Cut, I saw that Rattata was on the list, so I tried to teach it to him when I discovered that Bulbapedia had lied to me. Or more accurately, I hadn't looked at the generations. Guess I'll have to figure something else out.
I met Bill and rushed down towards Vermilion. However, I was running low on health, and tried to push through the last trainer before Vermilion, instead of walking all the way back to Cerulean to heal. This mistake would cost me my precious rat, George, and my soon-to-be cut slave, Milwaukee. With Buttface, the Zubat, and the daycare, it meant I was coming into town with just my Magikarp, Plop, and Kevin with 3 HP. As soon as I had gotten everything settled with their funerals, I pulled Dux the Spearow out of the PC. Remember him? Probably, it's been like 5 minutes for you. He was traded for Dux the Farfetch'd, a little confusing for Fried Dough. After the Dux for Dux trade, I went to Diglett's cave to catch Diglett, and Plop evolved into a Gyarados and learned Bite and Bubble Beam via TM. Thanks, Misty. I went and got the bike seeing as I had the voucher and realized the wife hadn't gotten it, so I could save some time. I then went to the SS Anne. After doing some grinding, I was ready to fight my rival number 3, and I was able to beat him. As you can see, Sand Attack was quite annoying, so I switched into Dux to get rid of the accuracy drops. Switched back into Plop, and being the absolute monster, sea monster that he is, he was able to sweep through the rest of the party with relative ease.
After completing the SS Anne, I spent some time looking up what Pokemon could learn Cut. I debated catching a Spearow to trade for Farfetch'd, but thought that might take too much time, so I decided to evolve Honey. I then head to take on Lieutenant Surge. I spent roughly 10 minutes on Surge's puzzle before looking it up and realizing there were only a few trash cans that would contain the switches. I finally got the puzzle correct and was able to defeat Surge with Hanklin, the MVP of my run so far. I didn't realize at the beginning that I had captured a Pokemon often used for speedrunning on my first catch. After defeating Surge, I get the bicycle. I then went off to grab Flash. I am not confident about my ability to find my way through the tunnel with Flash, let alone without it.
I begin my fight with the Electric Gym Leader, with my Pokemon that's weakest to electricity, because Plop is strong and Voltorb doesn't know any electric moves. I then switch to Doug, because he's super effective against them, and they can do nothing to him, outside of Pikachu's Quick Attack, which he didn't use. After my battle with Surge, we reduced the game speed back down to 100%. Before going to Rock Tunnel, I go north of Cerulean to get my encounter, an Abra, I'm lucky enough to catch him with the Great Ball I found in the garbage on the SS Anna.
As I assumed, I got lost in Rock Tunnel and spent far too much time wandering around trying to find my way out. I then head to take on Erica. According to the man creeping through the windows, this gym is great because it's full of women. That's super creepy. Like an idiot, I start out the fight with the grass gym leader with a water type. He gets off a few shots before being put to sleep. While he's sleeping, Victory Bell sucked out part of his soul to heal itself back up to half health, and Nemo faints. I then sub in a ground type. This is not my finest Pokemon moment. Hanklin is immediately put to sleep and is not able to do anything and gets knocked out very quickly. I then send out Thorns. He is able to knock out Victory Bell and then gets entangled by Tangela, but he is still able to get off a few good hits and knock it out. Vileplume tries to poison my Ivysaur without success while I tackle him to the ground. After the battle, Thorns evolved into Venusaur.
Giovanni was trivial at best. Plop is a higher level than his rock ground types, making them easy one-shots, whereas Kangaskhan takes 3 hits due to my poor move choice, but missed its Comet Punch, so there was no real danger there. Against Rival 4, Plop comes very close to taking out his Pidgeotto with a single Body Slam, but it lives to use a useless Whirlwind followed by a rather pathetic Quick Attack. His Execute comes out, and I try to put it to sleep with Drowsy before settling for Paralysis. I went into Ducks for a super effective Fly. When his Gyarados came out, so did mine. Mine's a higher level, so I won that matchup quite easily. The same goes for our Kadabra fight. And Plop comes back out to douse his Charmeleon, giving me the win. The rest of the tower was easy, and I'm glad to have the perfect counter to sleep moves with the Pokeflute. Afterwards, I catch a Snorlax by cycling road and name him Beefer.
After defeating Erica, I head to Celadon and take on the Rocket Hideout. I discovered how darn cute Sandslash is, and Nemo is able to pretty much one-shot all of Geo's Pokemon. Kangaskhan takes a little bit longer, but I'm able to freeze him with Ice Beam and then knock it out. I got the Sylph Scope and headed to the Pokemon Tower. I once again ran into my rival. I shoot down his Pidgeotto with an Ice Beam and do the same to Execute. Against his Gyarados, I almost one-shot it. I miss my second attack, allowing him to take me down to half health with a Dragon Rage. For Kadabra, I throw out Hanklin. He's my go-to whenever I'm not sure what will be effective. Turns out, his Horn Attack will do the trick, and Kadabra goes down, no contest. I have no idea what I was thinking, sending a Rattata that was level 10 up against a Charmeleon that was level 25, but he knocked him out in one blow. I send out Hanklin and take him down with Horn Attack and Tackle. I complete the Pokemon Tower and got the Pokeflute.
Now that I have the Pokeflute, I go to fight the Sleep Gym Leader Erica. I start by trying out Beefer to test his strength. Well, actually I test his Double Edge. Victory Bell survives and uses its signature Razor Leaf, but Beefer is outspeeding and is able to finish it with Headbutt. I'm concerned that he won't be able to get a rest off quick enough against Tangela, so I switch into Plop for Ice Beam. It nearly knocks it out, but Plop gets stuck in a bind. Not wanting to waste more time, seeing as Fried Dough is nearing Koga, I switch into Kevin and finish him off with Razor Leaf. Vileplume comes in as Erica's last hope of winning, and I send in my boy Jemson. 2 Psybeams later, and Vileplume is gone without landing a hit. With Erica out of the way, I'm off to Silph-Go. Thinking I'm smart, I'll use a Ground-type Doug to battle against an Electric-type Electrode. It outspeeds and blows up. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Once again, having no idea what to do next, I decide to follow the bridge south of Lavender Town. Turns out I was on the way to Fuchsia City. Once there, I head to the Pokemon Center to heal, and then I go to take on the gym. I'm able to defeat Koga with a combination of Hanklin and Nemo. Hanklin thrashes through his coughing, and I switch him out. Nemo takes down Muck with a number of Ice Beams and a Tackle. I throw Hanklin back in the mix for the second coughing. Nemo is knocked out by Weezing's Self-Destruct, and I win the battle. After I defeat Koga, I go to the Safari Zone and pick up Surf, as well as the gold teeth, which I trade for strength. I then go to Saffron City. I defeat Cobra Kai and head to Silphco. I look up how to get through Silphco because there's no way I was going to figure that out on my own. I got to the 5th rival. Nemo once again takes out Pidgeot with Ice Beam and knocks out Execute as well. I throw out Thorns to take on Gyarados, but the game says he's not very effective. So I use Nemo once again with Ice Beam. Then it's Hanklin for Alakazam. He gets confused, but I'm able to get a Thrash off and knock him out with 4 health to spare. I douse Charizard with Surf and get the win. I took the Lapras and named him Nessie. Unfortunately, I don't think he will be much better off with me, because he will probably spend most of his time trapped in the computer. Oh, I also beat Giovanni, but it wasn't worth my time editing that fight.
In my fight against the Silphco rival Fivel as you may know him, I start by landing a crit Thunderbolt against his Pidgeot. That bird won't be flying anytime soon. For Execute, I send in Ducks to use Fly, but before he hits, he sets up a Reflect, so my damage is cut in half. Then he poisons Ducks, so it's time for Plop to go in. He gets hit with Leech Seed, but kills with an Ice Beam. Next up is Gyarados, so the Ice Beam span continues. Beaver one-shots Alakazam with Double Edge. When Charizard uses Rage, I know I've won, so I take the opportunity to rest up before finishing him off. Giovanni doesn't have a hope. I get Raw Dose some experience before bringing out the broom to sweep with Plop's Surf. In my fight with Koga, I intend to level up Beaver, because I know Jemson may be a better matchup, but he can't take a self-destruct. However, against his Muck, I am unable to hit due to his Minimize, and Beaver gets hit with a critical Sludge before he can use his Rest, causing him to die. With no other real choice, I send in Rado to use Swift because that won't miss, before switching into Jemson to beat his last 2 Pokemon. Also, look at how much health his Weezing survives on.
I entered Sabrina's gym and realized I'm going to need Pokemon who aren't weak to Psychic to be a little bit higher of a level, so I head to Cycling Road and grind them up. After a couple of hours, I return to Sabrina's gym. I use Van Winkle, my Drowsy, to put Kadabra to sleep, and then Nemo to blast him with Ice Beam. I then use Surf to knock him out. I throw Van Winkle back out, and he gets hit with Double Slap. I attempt to put Mr. Mime to sleep, but it fails. I throw out Ducks, and he immediately becomes confused. I am able to get off a Sword Stance, and then I use Fly with 1 health. I'm able to use Fly 2 more times, and manage to knock him out. For Venomoth, I use Van Winkle, and knock it out in 2 moves. I put Alakazam to sleep, and then send in Nemo, who does a small amount of damage with Ice Beam. Alakazam wakes up and uses Recover. Nemo gets knocked down to 13 health, but is able to sneak a win.
While working my way through the Pokemon Mansion, I lost Rawdo to a self-destructing Electrode. Given the death of my only Electric type, I went to the power plant to get Zapdos. I thought if I used Max Repels, nothing would bother me till I got to the bird. As long as I didn't pick up a Voltorb, I should be fine. However, I forgot to remove Lapras from the front of my party, so I ended up with a level 33 Electabuzz and not a level 50 Zapdos. My disappointment is immeasurable. I spent about half an hour leveling up Zapdos, the Electabuzz, only for him to be killed by a self-destruct. Now my day is ruined. Needing a 6th member for my team, I take Lapras and level it up against Sabrina's gym trainers. I then rush to fight Blaine. Plop makes it to Arcanine without taking any damage. Arcanine outspeeds and uses Takedown. It's a decent hit, but nothing to be worried about. My Surf will kill next turn. And then he lands a crit that does way more than twice the damage the last hit did. Plop lives on 4. I'm sweating. But this is the second time I've beat a gym leader before Fried Dough. The first was Brock. I then rushed to fight Sabrina because I beat all the trainers in there already, and she is the last gym leader I can fight before Giovanni. I lead with Jemson because neither of us can really do much, and my higher level will give me the win. Against Mr. Mime, I send out Ducks and start with a few sand attacks. I then switch into Swords Dance to max out my attack. I use Fly, but get a critical hit, so my attack boosts did nothing. Sabrina healed, but wasn't able to land another hit. Fly one-shots Venomoth. I heal before attacking Alakazam. It uses Recover at full health, and then dies in one hit. I beat Sabrina prior to Fried Dough beating Blaine, giving me my first lead in gym badges since beating Brock. Unfortunately, in the time it took me to fumble my way out of her gym, she had beat Blaine, so we were tied for gym badges once again. This was the first time I had led in nearly 10.5 real-world hours.
I rushed to defeat Blaine, seeing as Zex was closing in on me with gym badges. I brush through his trainers, and then take on the big man himself. I attempt to put Growlithe to sleep twice, but it fails. Van Winkle gets shot down to half health by Growlithe, so I switch him out for Nemo. Blaine heals with a super potion, but I one-shot it with Hydro Pump. Blaine then sends out Ponyta, and I Hydro Pump it as well. Same goes for Rapidash. His Arcanine gets a hit off on me, damaging itself in the process. I use Hydro Pump and Surf to knock it out. I then head straight to Viridian to take on that gym. Nemo is my prized player for both of these gyms. He one-shots all of Giovanni's Pokémon, taking only a small amount of damage from a Doug trio who outsped. After I defeated Giovanni, this puts me back in the lead. Not sure what to do next, I decided to head towards the last road. I ran into my rival for a final time. My Pokémon are slightly lower level than his, so this fight will be a challenge. I throw Gyarados in to deal with Pidgeot. I keep him in to take on Rhyhorn. For Execute, I use a Ponyta that I caught and named Donkey. Despite being 15 levels lower, he is able to wipe it out with Fire Blast. I send out Hanklin to take on Gyarados, which was a bad idea. I really need to learn type matchups. So instead I put in Thorns. It takes a bit, but Thorns is able to knock out Gyarados. I start out with Ducks for Alakazam, but I barely put a scratch on him before he wipes me out. The little damage I was able to do is recovered the next turn. I use Van Winkle to put Alakazam to sleep, only to have him wake up on the next turn, so I put him back to sleep, and once again he wakes up right away. I put him to sleep for a third time, and this time it sticks a little longer. I guess I would probably wake up pretty quickly as well if someone were trying to headbutt me. But I finally managed to knock out Alakazam. I once again use Nemo to take on Charizard, and I am able to one-shot it. After seeing my rival's Pokémon, I think I need to grind up some more before I attempt to take on the Elite Four. Well, that's all for this video, folks. Thanks for joining us. We decided to split the race in half so the video wouldn't get too long. If you managed to find this video, let us know if you prefer 2 shorter videos or 1 longer video. We're pretty new at this, so if you have any suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Hope y'all have an excellent day.